No one knows. No one knows. We all woke up in a upside down, turning inside out, like we've all been led astray. We've been standing on the outside in, trying to find our friends, like we're all just castaways. Feel like we've been missing out.
Okay. In 1958, we see a couple different main themes coming up in the second Godfather. The gaming. They moved into making money from casinos, but it doesn't just stop at casinos, people. Anyone who knows betting on the horses, or even nowadays, like Ricky said earlier, if you go to the casinos, you'll see that Caesars has a
sports book. The
sports book,
right?
That's it. Yes. So that is where the legal gambling money is coming now. Remember, the house always wins. You can think you're getting money, but the house always wins. And we have to follow these athletes from when they're babies in college. So I had a picture of Ohio State Stadium up because it looks just like the Coliseum. And we know that the Coliseum is literally keeping people busy with bread and circus. If you keep every man who is so tired from his work and so tired of hearing the wife and kids in the background, they will zone out in front of the idea is to get them zoning into sports instead of their life. So they're not like paying attention to maybe a child that's going into like maybe bad stuff. It keeps the dad. It's another way to keep the dad and family unit broken apart. And you get to bet on games, and you get to pay plays to be done to throw games. Can you talk a little bit about that, Tony? Because I know you used to love.
I was a junkie.
Yes.
Yeah, I was a junkie. And then I kind of, it's almost like coming out of a trance for me, because I started to see the bleed over, and I started to recognize that things appeared to be orchestrated, and the amount of money and going against morality and nationalism and everything else that they've been moving towards. It just flew in the face of, I think it's to get people's trust. You have them for decades, and then you start leaking all these other things in. And I think it works, unfortunately, it works way more on the generation behind me, because they weren't around for the inception. And so for me, it's like, well, I don't believe it started that way, but I believe it's evolved into that. And
yes.
And I lost interest in pretty much across the board. I lost interest. I mean, I was my wife will attest to this. And when I started coming out of it and saying, I'm not going to watch, she's like, oh, you will, you'll go back to it. And then when I didn't, she's like, who the hell are you? But you're right. I dialed out of a lot of stuff. I was, you don't talk to me on Sunday. And I grew up with that. My father was that guy. For 6 hours on Sunday, I don't want to hear shit. I don't want to talk to anybody. Leave me alone. I'm watching my games, because he worked all week, and he put his time in, and he just wanted to be left alone and watch his escapism, because that's really what sports is. It's an escape from reality. I feel the same way about the entertainment industry now too. Like, I'm not interested. There's shows that I've watched that as soon as they start to go to that woke place and all the things that they're trying to indoctrinate, I cut it off like it's a dead limb. I stop immediately. I don't say, I'll give it a few more. I just say, that's it. Okay, done with that. On to something that isn't going to try to
long.
Yeah, but it's a hard habit to break. It's very hard, especially when you've done it your whole life. And I think you had mentioned this before about playing sports. Now, I have a different attitude about that. I was raised playing all sports.
Everyone should learn how to be on a team and learn how to work together and learn accountability, and that is a good thing in sports. It
was fun. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Loved it.
Loved it.
But Loved
And really,
it.
we're talking about doing it yourself versus watching
Mhm.
people do it. That's the
Yeah.
huge, biggest difference.
Yep.
Doing it yourself, heck yeah, go out there, play whatever is on your mind. But like at the same time, watching people play something, that's weird.
Right.
And you know what? Like we have to realize, Rick said earlier, like, yes, video games is the same exact programming. It's having you stare at a screen and some kids don't even play video games. Some kids literally just watch kids play video games.
And I mean, that's all they do. And I think it has people, and I mean, maybe just parents, perplexed. And if you're listening to this and you're one of them, because I know that you're out there, because I talk to people at work, and of course it's like, they can't understand why they would rather do that than either play the game that I bought you, that you begged for, or what we all used to do, remember growing up, was going outside, which I don't mean that in a bad way. I know kids still go outside, but choosing to go outside, and like we were just talking about again, the human-to-human interaction, playing with another boy in the park and building a fort is infinitely more fun than being inside holding a controller, playing Call of Duty, drinking Dr. Pepper. Everyone knows, like deep down, like in their heart of hearts, like every boy knows, like they'd rather do that. We'd all rather be outside than playing a video game.
Well, it was a threat
but they forced it onto them. Yeah.
Well, I was threatened with that, Rick. I was threatened. If you didn't do your chores, if you didn't do this, you're not going to be allowed to go out and play. That was a fate worse than death when I was a kid. Now kids are like, whatever. I don't want to go outside.
Yeah, if I could, my bike was always held ransom. You can't take for me, it was, you can't take the bike out of the garage until this, that, or the other. But I would always, of course, they would never interrupt my fun. And I will give my parents that credit. Yes, there was discipline, there were strict rules, but I was never suffocated from having a good time or having fun. I just had to learn to earn it.
You were safer and out in the middle of nowhere. I do remember
taking way out in the middle
bike out, and Connie David like totally got me in trouble for that. But yeah.
There's probably coyotes back then. But yeah, no, totally. It's just a different time. And they promote this sense that to these kids that, you can be a Twitch streamer just like me. Give up your aspirations of being something else, like a public servant or a first responder. We need more firefighters. We need less Twitch.
We need more steel manufacturers. Yeah. We need more
air skilled workers too.
We need more.
We can go on.
Great point. Something, when I was a kid, the guys that went to tech half day in senior year were considered the dumb guys.
Yeah.
But guess what? They all learned trades. They didn't have debt 4 years later like the rest of us did, because I was paying student loans off into my 30s. And now the shift has been like, hey, that's where the money is now. Don't go to college. And college is a place to go get indoctrinated now, but you don't have any guarantee of anything. But pushing trades is like, hey, you can make whatever you want of yourself because you have a skill, and it's a necessary, what did they call it during COVID? Essential. Okay. The essentials have changed. So for instance, when I was a kid, like, some kids said, I want to be president, but many kids said, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a police officer. Those were considered valor, heroic, servant type jobs. And then that all changed, and then it started to shift, and it was like nobody wanted to be that anymore. But the interesting thing about 9/11 is it kind of brought that back. Now all of a sudden kids did want to be firefighters and first responders and everything else. So if you can draw something good from something really evil and bad, at least it caused a little bit more of a shift in our thinking, in the way, because let's face it, I mean, we took as my generation, which is really baby boomer / Gen X, we took our eye off the ball and started allowing our children to be raised by others. And once you come to the reality that those others don't have the best interests of your kids in mind, generally, then your job was to kind of make sure you didn't take your hand off the control button on that and hand it over to somebody else.
Breaking apart of the family unit. Why does the kid have to go to school? Because mom's at work. Why is mom at work? Because like feminism. Okay, well, nowadays, if you go up on TikTok, there's all these like 20-year-olds going, I really just want to work at home, and like I want to be a mom, and like make sure that all these women who, I need to work because like boss bitch, you go to their houses and their clothes is like to the ceiling because they don't have time, and it's not looking down on them. Humans don't have time to keep a house and take care of yourself. It takes time to work out. It takes 30 minutes to an hour. Then you have to clean up afterwards. Then you feel like shit for a few days. Like, it takes hours out of your week. So no wonder no one's doing it. If you have 1924 disguise a kind of horrible throat punch to the American system, instead of telling these people, like, you guys should open a family business where the money's going back into your pockets, and dad can work 3 days, mom can work 3 days, all the money goes to their family, they can have a good work-life balance, they both get money, they're both working. And this would have been way more powerful than, oh yeah, let your wife get a $50 work week too, being someone's bitch. Like, what? It's so backwards how they made feminism. And I am a true woman. Like, I want to make sure women can be the best of themselves they can be, but we're putting them in roles that they're not handled for. They're not made for. So that was one sad way that they did break apart the family unit.
Well, and let's face it, stay-at-home moms and the whole idea of empowering women. And there's people who believe, well, you're not empowering women by having to be stay-at-home moms or homeschool their kids, or, they don't want to go out into the workforce. And that's utter fucking nonsense. It's nonsense, but people started to buy into it, because if you hear something over and over enough, and so what used to be the standard, which was the stay-at-home mom, and how hard it is to run a household and everything else, now it became like scoffed at, looked down upon, because, well, that wasn't empowering. That was when women were being suppressed.
It's totally coming
but
back.
It's garbage because the women who did it were not unfulfilled. They felt like, hey, and the fact that it's coming back now, I think is a really positive thing. I think people have pushed back.
They're still trying to make fun of the girls who are doing it, and they like made these fake Instagrammers called trad wives, and they're dressing up and doing their makeup to like do laundry and meal prep, and it's like so fake that they're laughing at them to make these girls who really just want to do that, watch their kids, teach their kids, not have to send the kid off so it doesn't get spike proteins from the preschool or the elementary school students it would have to be around, or the fake programming that you don't know what's happening out there. I know we always have daycares being busted because of sexual teachers doing sexual stuff to the kids or beating them. And if you look up all the teachers who have been caught for sexual acts with children, they're usually women, and it's like by the hundreds of each state. It's crazy. So yeah, I can see moms wanting to stay home with like the baby cubs during the apocalypse, and they're going to be made fun of, but this is where we're going to start seeing strong family units come back into place. And I totally think women can make millions, but I know that they can do it in a way that is outside of a 40-hour work week for somebody else. I know that if women were given time and rest, they could share and build a business with their husband doing great things. We need to see more of that kind of women empowerment rather than become a slave for some 40-hour a week job.
Yeah, there's a total shift. It's been a shift, and the way the world works now has helped, and inadvertently has kind of powered that shift. Because I was having this conversation with one of my clients yesterday. She said, I hate going into the office. It's not even necessary. Like, they just have us do it once a week because they say, oh, well, it's for meetings or conference. And she goes, and then we don't do that. She said, it's just like an unnecessary exercise for me to go in the office. And it's a pain in the ass, and you're driving. Whereas you can now really do, if you're a self-starter and productive, you can do pretty much almost any job from the comfort of your home now.
Totally. And not only that, with the amount of AI that every single job uses allows for us, if you're working smarter, not harder. And we just spent millions of dollars to get this new system that can like organize or send out memberships or whatever the case is. Why are we still working 40 hours a week? We can get what used to be 40 hours of labor done really in like 10 hours a week. And that's it. Like, I'll do this amount of tools. I'll do them amazing, but I'm not going to come in. Like, I don't do 5-day work weeks anymore. Like, that's ridiculous.
That's the poverty slave mindset. It's getting
Mhm.
broken. Thank God. It's taken a long time, but it's
This
finally
is where
getting
it came
blown
from.
up.
It was
Yep.
literally part of the um the Roman Empire. That is how they kept slaves. So really quick, in the second one, we head on over to Cuba. It's the place to be. It's hip happening. The communists are well aware of our senators in the movie. So you have US senators partying with the communists in clubs in the late 50s in Cuba. So I was just like expecting when I looked up, I was like, okay, let's see what was happening on the world stage in real life around that time frame. So in 1958, when this whole like Godfather 2 is taking place, um, Dwight D. Eisenhower was the president, Nixon was the VP, and what I noticed was interesting was the Senate Majority Leader was Lyndon B. Johnson. Now, if we're paying attention to the movie, they're dealing with everyone in Senate, and they did have the Senate Majority Leader, like they were in cahoots with the communists, like at this club the most. So it's like, oh, that's weird that it's Lyndon B. Johnson, because anyone who knows any kind of conspiracy knows what Lyndon B. Johnson is probably most known for. So this is a blurring of the second and third movies, because it's basically, we always know all roads lead to Rome. Everyone thinks this immediately means Vatican. I personally think of the Roman Empire and all of its land that it was once in charge of. I see that as a possible Rome address. So Sicily, the Vatican, where we know it is now, back in the day, it was yes, obviously it was Roman Empire, but Israel was a Roman state called Judea. So that's interesting, because when I'm looking up in real life, all these things that happened in the late 50s in Cuba, Havana especially, um, despite the vote, Cuba recognized Israel, and both nations established diplomatic relations in 49. And then in 52, Israel opened an honorary consulate in Havana, upgraded the consulate to diplomatic in 54, and Cuba opened diplomatic office in 57, which was literally the year before we see the mafia meeting with communists leaders, and with Lyndon B. Johnson. That would have been who in real life he was meeting with. So um yeah, interesting to see Israel and Vatican lineups throughout the 50s. I went into the conspiracy hole of Telegram, and I just put in Lyndon B. Johnson, and I saw what came up. Basically, most people are going to think, when they hear Lyndon B. Johnson, they're going to be like, oh, he killed Kennedy. That is a huge working, very interesting theory. And Nancy even said, Joe Biden has a beautiful vision for America. He knows the issues. He knows the strategy of how to get things done. The greatest record of a president in the first 2 years when he had the majority, comparable to Lyndon B. Johnson. So that's weird to say, because he's a vegetable. But Lyndon B. Johnson wasn't great. So it's like, well, why would you say that? And I thought this was interesting. It has nothing to do with the real Lyndon B. Johnson. It has to do with the ship, who was attacked by Israel. So I never knew that Israel attacked America. Again, I am not talking about the people. I love all Jews. And personally, I think every human on earth is a Jew. I cover that in my Harry Potter videos. I just say that there might be a corruption with certain groups who are making really big moves on this board. Now, this one was interesting. It was actually a French something I had to translate, but it does take you to, there's a Martin Sandler on C-SPAN, translated to English. Forget about the CIA, forget about Lyndon Johnson, forget about Fidel Castro. It was Mossad that killed JFK. Then it's like, oh, that's so interesting, because like in The Godfather and stuff that was happening really in that time frame, everything kind of does go back to this Israel diplomacy in Cuba, not exactly where you think it does. So that's interesting. Hannibal, They were all stones away from death. Oh, that's just interesting. What do Millard Fillmore, James Garfield, Teddy Roosevelt, William Taft, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and Hannibal Hamlin all have in common? They were all stone throw away from the death of a president. Connections with either a chief justice or being one at some point, and being vice president or president of the U.S. But most importantly, they all served as Smithsonian Regents. So these are all things you can look at. Go check out icons. Send him my love. And this was another long old rabbit hole. I don't even know what it was about. It's going into the aid that World War II gave to Israel, and it's explaining a lot of what we're dealing now with. Hamas was like laid in place by Lyndon Johnson, weirdly enough. So a lot of the stuff we're dealing with now is still cleaning up that World War II, Vietnam era mess, basically. So again, when people think of Lyndon B. Johnson, they think of the Cuban Missile Crisis, JFK's death. Everyone asks, there's like kind of a couple different working theories. The number one working theory, why did JFK die? Who killed him? Why was he killed? What was the motive? And everyone kind of is like, oh, he was going to tell everyone about aliens. Like he was about to release like all this stuff on like Area 51 and stuff, basically. So that's interesting. But I mean, you have to realize people who put out like History Channel stuff, sometimes they're made from like this entertainment group called Prometheus, and like, what is it called? Ancient Aliens is a Prometheus production, basically. And they're really pushing like the Nazis, aliens from outer space gave us all this technology from the 1920s Antarctica to the 1950s UFO crash. And that's how we started. Like, you had to give a reason to explain the technological boom that was about to happen. So that was kind of one working theory. My theory is a little pretty much similar, but ever so slightly different, because I don't think of vampires or aliens from space. I see vampires from below, or different types of like demons. So I think Kennedy found out that the vampires are trying to insert their black goo, like the black goo of Prometheus, into humans, and they are doing so through biological weapons called vaccines, making anyone a possible Manchurian candidate. Even in theory, his wife would be able to take a shot at him. That is like what Manchurian candidates do, and that is what he was kind of looking at the research of. And Kennedy was in the 60s worried about vaccines. Now, I've already done, I usually call out the undead when I see them. So I've already done many videos of vampires, many videos of zombies. And I talk about how there's a word that has become canceled and you definitely can't say, and it's like close to saying the N word. And it's really sad, because this one word not only perfectly describes what vaccines started doing to people, it made them stop doing their natural bodily functions. Something was hindering their natural body functions. When we hinder something that is natural, like a fire retardant, we literally say you are retarding someone's natural ability. So this is Kennedy talking at an association for why are all these children changing now that we started giving them these vaccines in the 60s. So, you know, very similar. Basically, interdimensional beings gave us all this technology to be quiet and to change a bunch of people really quickly, is the idea that he was about to unleash into the world. I think this is interesting because Trump did have a phone call with RFK. I'm not like the person to say go vote for RFK. I see weird stuff there, but it's interesting that Trump did bring a Kennedy in to talk about what I think his father was killed for, or uncle was killed. Okay. Is there anything you would like to say about any of that Israeli tension with communists in the 50s?
No, this is learning for me too. Some of this I was not aware of.
I know. I didn't know any of that until I like put it together really quick and I did some deep dives. The third Godfather is going to be about like the Vatican and clean money. And it's been some years since the mafia kind of money of what we saw in the second movie. The third one is probably the least seen Godfather. And it's really interesting because basically how the mob was legally allowed to make money after so many years. They made their gamblings, they made it more copacetic for everyone, and basically they're still getting house edges, but they're not getting in as much trouble because it's legal per Vegas. Of course, remember Vegas does allow free prostitution. That's not a big deal if it's just women making their own money, but it's a big deal if you find out there's a sex ring being sold to people who go to Vegas and you can't try them for any kind of crime because prostitution's legal. So that's why we're whoring out these little 12-year-olds. Like, you have to realize this kind of place has its really bad downsides too. And things aren't always as they appear. So basically the mafia money went into still Las Vegas and gaming, but also into the real estate market. And weirdly enough, the Vatican owned 25% of the U.S. housing market in Godfather, which is weird when you start knowing about like Vanguard and BlackRock owning U.S. housing markets, even though some of their companies might be from overseas in real life nowadays.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So basically, Michael takes ownership. He wants to take ownership of the 25% Vatican stake. But of course, the bishops and the Vatican banker are like so not happy about that. And basically, it's just a bunch of deaths, like suicide weekend back to back. Bunch of oranges dropping everywhere, ending with an Italian opera. Which does anyone? I think we heard Italian opera recently, didn't we?
Yeah, at the convention.
Yeah, we did. RNC in 2020.
Right at the end.
Yep. In 2020, we also wanted, this is why I brought it up like 3 years ago with you, was because they did the same song at the RNC with a huge fireworks show in 2020. And everyone knew that it was Italian opera, very, very ode to Godfather. And he does end his Republican National Conventions like this. And apparently the words of what's being said is, I'll put it on the screen. But it's very interesting that we see so many parallels from the attempted assassination of Don. And it was actually someone within the family when that happened. The assassination attempt was one of the brothers, and Michael kisses the head of the brother who tried to assassinate him. And he's like, you missed, like, you're done for. Like, this is ridiculous. And we did see kissings of heads of possible attackers. And I just wanted to go over some of the cosmic water cooler stuff, which are rumors that I've heard from the farthest parts of the internet. And we're going to close out today's episode with what we've heard over the past week, which is we had an attempt on our Don, his life, and they missed. And we heard Italian opera. We heard very interesting things over the past few weeks. Do you guys want to talk on any of the RNC or the assassination?
Sure. You want to start, Rick?
Well, yeah, I think there's something that I heard from the literal water cooler, but I think applies here because I didn't really see it coming and I wasn't aware. But that New York, the state and the city, have basically become red, and I really had not. I guess I had not been paying attention to that, but hearing it firsthand from people who live there, saying, we're literally fed up with it now, and seeing what happened on Saturday to Donald Trump has basically given them the fire they needed to stand up and say, all right, we need a change. And that blows my mind. Same with Illinois, being a red state, minus like Cook County. That was fascinating to me, completely.
changing
100%.
hearts and minds. Well, I think people are
Yes.
seeing it. There's
Oh my God, yes.
like we were talking about before, Rick. The world I was raised in was 3 channels. Everything's controlled. Like they could narrate to you, and you didn't really have any other means. Now people have so much information. The highway is jammed, and they can see everything, and people can tell like, something is so off here. And the more off it gets, I think it was started when they started seeing the persecution. Like they're going after this guy for garbage, and then they see them when none of that works, and it just continues to boost his popularity and his legend. Really, once you got past that, people are like, okay, this guy's the real thing. Then their last recourse is to try to snuff him, and everybody was calling, predicting. People were saying, yeah, they're gonna have no choice but to take him out, and then of course they try. And then people say, well, okay, they're exactly who we thought they were. And now they see the bad guy. They see who the real bad guys are. And they're exposed. And, you hear all these former heads of agencies, the Comeys and the rest of them going out on these shows and The View. And they're saying, Donald Trump's a vindictive man. He's going to come after all of us when he becomes president again. It's like, yeah, that's right. And I think the average person is like, yeah, he should. You're criminals. And now you've tried to kill him. And what people, I think, don't understand about the hierarchy, we have somebody running for a local congressional district who was in charge of the child trafficking division at the FBI here. And she has a great take on it because she said, I was in that agency for 30 years and there's good people there. She goes, the majority are good, hardworking people. And I don't know if you said it, Lex, or Rick, that you said it, that it's a small number and it's the people at the top that are the bad guys. The corruption is a very small group of people who set the policy and everything, but the people who are underneath them are good people. They're just, patriots. They're Americans. And I think in these so-called blue cities that you were talking about, Rick, that people think, well, they're blue. What they don't realize is there's a lot of red in there. And before, people were afraid to speak out. They're like, I'm not going to say anything. My job might be in jeopardy or I'll be discriminated against. And the difference between then and now is people don't give a shit anymore. They're tired of it. They see it and they're now calling it out openly and they're announcing like, hey, I'm not, a lot of people will say, I've always been this person. I just was afraid to come out and speak my mind. So I think enough brave people, and I consider everybody on, that's in this room right now to be brave, because you're saying things that other people would just be absolutely petrified. Like, I'm not going there. I'm not going to say that to anybody.
It's fear. That's how they control. And what causes fear in humans? I talk about it all the time. Look up toxoplasmosis causes anxiety. There's teeny tiny single cellular parasites that can literally cause you to be so sad that you will commit suicide. It is a problem. It's not just one type of parasite either. It's a bunch. So do we need to take a 5-minute break or anything?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, cool. What was I going to say really quick? I'm finishing up. So this last slide, like I said, this entire time, it's 1% of every industry that's not bad. So when you find out that certain titles, certain seemingly races, religions did something bad, I promise you it was vampires pretending to be what good people around them wear. It's not everyone. I think everyone is redeemable if they are human, if they have any belief of being saved or a better life. I truly believe that belief is going to propel them. So this past week, I tell everyone, like, don't get married to little things you hear. This is where, because the things that we hear, I bet they're like 70% truths. Like there's there's a teeny tiny amount of truth in there, is how I always kind of see it. So the leftist Trump haters were kind of just like, Trump team planned this. Bravo. Great acting, you guys. Great acting. And what, like all the Abrahamic religions, many Jews, many Christians, many even Muslims have been talking, who are pro-Trump, because yes, he does have the Muslim vote, because they want him to stop this war. And and Trump said it, He just wants people to stop dying. He doesn't care if the Palestine, like, he doesn't care one or the other. He wants them all to stop dying. So we all want this war to stop. And some of these religions have to deal with it the hardest. So they want him back, and they're quiet right now. And of course they're saying, what do you mean? How dare you think it was staged? God put forth his hand. We all saw it. And that changed all of our destinies, which, I mean, no matter how that played out, I do believe this is true. I just think there were some things in the background. And then you have a wonderful new group of people who saw this happen, and they're like, they might have been lost. They might have been anti-Trump. And this somehow changed them. They saw something that we all saw, and they're like, wow, there's something bigger than us. Maybe I should look into or talk to God, or maybe I should even just look into patents that are hidden from us. I think these are things that people are questioning now. And it's not a crazy thing to ask little questions about the event we all saw go down. And then you have these people who, they're pretty much saying the same thing, like intellectuals who might be atheists or just even Gnostic. They're still pro-Trump. They're saying, like, you guys, we have MIT patents for literally like invisible Kevlar through the SSP. He's protected. Nothing, even if they do shoot at him, he's fine. And then you have a similar kind of thing where it's like the spiritual pro-Trump crowd who's like, he has angels, or like the Galactic Federation surrounding him, or like he's straight up an immortal guardian. Either way, the bullet can't penetrate him. He's fine. So you have these different things. I definitely was one of those people who's like, oh my God, he bleeds? Wait, like he's human? Ah, there goes my theory. Unless the bad vamps knows that 45 can't bleed, because they tried to make him bleed before, which is why Dems are saying he's faking. Okay, whatever, fine. Trump showed Gutfield the wound and swears he's never bringing it up again. I'll mark him as human, even though I'm pretty sure he is still chaotic good or neutral. That is kind of like where my head went when I heard everything, and I did watch it live. And yeah, it was very, very interesting. So that is all I have for The Godfather. Anyone want to say closing remarks on this beautiful mafia journey we just took?
That's a trip down memory lane for me. But you're so right. The correlations are definitely there. Especially, and I think the third movie was really overlooked and sort of beaten down, and people said, oh, it didn't live up to the hype. I disagree. I actually really liked the third movie. Because I think it ties it all up. It brings it to fruition where he's going to get in bed with the Vatican and their banks. And when they get into how much money there is and the amount of, power they have, it's scary. And most people don't understand that. So that was like an education on how really our world works. That's the last ring he had to kiss to get to the place he thought was the pinnacle of his existence. And his legitimacy was to get in bed with the Vatican and the Vatican Bank, and how it was easy to bribe and sway people and look the other way. Here's a guy who's had thousands of people probably killed and gotten out of the way, yet they're going to legitimize him and give him their business. That tells people everything they need to know. The corruption wins in the long run. And the fact that he has to sacrifice, that there's always collateral damage. I think that was the biggest message in that last movie. Was throughout everything, his daughter catches a stray bullet. Yeah. And she's the collateral damage for all of it, that the innocent people always pay the price for the bad guys. I thought that was the message I came away from the whole trilogy with, was that the innocent people are always going to be the ones that pay the freight.
And it's sad because a lot of people around Trump have died, and I don't know how much of it is natural or have been like, they got the brother early on, and it's like, was that a natural death? They got Melania's mom. Okay, she's older. Okay, maybe, whatever. I know older people who are alive, and it's like, we have to start thinking that Ivana, right? Ivana was another collateral. Like, were these people natural, or was it like something like where they attacked because they can't attack him and they attack people around you? And this is why the past 4 years, I know a lot of my friends, they know me, they love me, they've been around this long, they'll never leave. But like, I pulled back, and I'm like, you guys will be attacked. And like, you guys, like, basically you have to do like everyone thinks they know spiritual protection until you like have a certain amount of eyes on you. You get ran off the road at 120 miles an hour or boxed in and trying to get ran over. We've had our door be knocked in. We've had attempts on taking us while we're out. And it's like, if you don't have people who are giving into that fear, it will hurt them. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to hurt them. So as much as I love everyone around me, I really have pulled back. And it's like, I tell everyone, I'm like, you know that I'm different and you know this will be over, but something's happening right now. Like, I can't put you in front of me. And I even thought that with Trump. We went to a Trump rally and his social Secret Service like pushed us to sit behind him. And I was like, I have stray bullets are going to come to the people behind you. Like, I knew that 4 years ago. And I was like, no, thank you. It's fine. And a lot of us did know that this was happening. It's not like it's a surprise, but now that it did happen, it was a move on the chessboard and it was one of the last moves. So whatever happens from here on out is going to happen quick, swift. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be massive. So I'm so excited to finally be talking about this. I'm very grateful for being protected in all aspects when talking about this. And I truly think it's because, like Ricky said earlier, they don't have as big of a grasp. They don't have the money. They needed Trump's money from his lawsuits. Like, that's their money. That's the entire budget they have. And guess what? He gave cash, and cash can be tracked. So if any of that money that went towards that court hearing is tracked somewhere it shouldn't be instead of the vault, then it's interesting. And I think it's once they realize he's going to pay everything cash, like this money that we're trying to give from him isn't usable, then they start throwing away his like little court problems and no one hears about it because there was a huge shooting. So it's like talk everlasting, very interesting.
Yeah, we could see that playing out. I think you placing Lyndon B. Johnson in Cuba during way before the Cuban Missile Crisis took off was fascinating.
It's around the same time, 4 years. That's how long it would take. And then, of course, we didn't even get into the Weatherman Underground. A lot of what we talk about really was pulled from a lot of the stuff that happened in the 60s. In Pursuit of Truth on BitChute and Gab covered this in depth, in detail. He covers in The Bite how good vampires are using epinephrine pens to make synthetic adrenochrome, like True Blood, so vampires could live without drinking real blood. He covers how Jews in the 30s and 40s were writing their families by the hundreds, saying there's these fake people coming into our businesses pretending they're Jews, but no one knows who they are, and they're taking over our businesses. And then all these Jews were like displaced, and their ability to make money was taken away. They were sent to ghettos, and all the time they're saying like there's people pretending to be us and they're not us. And yet we hear all these horrible things for Jews. So I'll never be the person. In my Harry Potter episodes, I put that stuff down because whenever you start talking about truth, I'm wrapping it up how I started it. You get people hating on Catholics, on Jews, on whatever, politicians. And we need to come together now and realize if you don't want vampires there, you have to take their job. You have to start doing it. And we have to go back and do the stuff that we talk shit about others not doing. We have to do it. So here we are doing it.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm glad we talked about it.
Yes. Thank you guys for joining me. If you are interested in Tony, I will have all his links. We haven't made them yet in the description below for how to follow along this crazy next year. Obviously, for the next 4 months, I'm sure you're going to be talking a lot about the election. Everyone kind of put their whole lives online for the next 4 months. We don't know what the heck's going to come out, but we know that Arizona, and especially Maricopa County of Arizona, is a huge battlefield. So please follow Tony. After the election, don't expect just politics. This guy is a wealth of knowledge. Once you get him talking, he's on a roll. So he talks about everything, but definitely a lifestyle channel I would check out. He will be here on Rumble. Thank you for joining me, Tony and Ricky. I will see you in a little bit. Thank you, babe.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. It's always fun.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out.
All
Thank
right.
you, guys.
Love you and talk to you soon.
Bye.